Welcome to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 take action success coach and strategist, empowering, educating, inspiring, and igniting people like you to take action with jet propulsion. We assist people to find and embrace their life purposes, live their highest vision, and become the best version of themselves, forging a strong foundation to soar to success. For more information, please reach out to us at ldcstrategies.com or coachlorianne.com. On Healthy Lifestyle today, I'm so excited. We have Ravinder Taylor on. And for the past 30 years, Ravinder has been researching and analyzing self-help modalities. So today, I'm really excited to say that we are going to be talking about the science of self-empowerment. It's mindset. You know, I love mindset stuff. So she has really utilized her learning in thousands of interactions with individuals seeking guidance for breaking through blocks to success in their lives. Sound familiar? Many have praised her insights and reported great success when following her recommendations. Ravinda is a co-author of over 200 personal motivation audio programs and 2 books, Motivational Nudges to Empower Your Life and Peripheral Perception via Subliminal Stimuli. Please welcome to the show, Ravinda. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks so much for having me on, Lorianne.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
It's a
excited
pleasure meeting you.
pleasure meeting you as well. So excited to light everybody up with verbal caffeine right now. So let's just jump right in because we talked about one of my favorite subjects, which is mind training. So what is mind training? Let's explain it to our audience, and what do you hope that our listeners get out of this?
Mind training, in a nutshell, it's about taking conscious control over formerly subconscious processes in order to enhance health and vitality, eliminate self-sabotaging tendencies, and to supercharge success potential. And I say formerly subconscious processes. Lots of people think that we are just the way that we are. This is how God made us, or our genes made us, or circumstances made us. And what we discover through mind training is that we have a whole lot more control. We just have to take it.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
have to take it, and then we can get into the driver's seat of our own lives as opposed to, just being a passenger being driven around by circumstances.
Yes, yes. Everything starts with awareness. I say that probably ad nauseum, but it starts with awareness. We need to be aware of why we're doing what we're doing. It usually has some kind of reflection of something that happened in our life, and that's what we used as coping skills to get through whatever the challenge was, right? But I love the subtitle to your book. The subtitle to your book is The Science of Self-Empowerment. Talk about that. Like, what would you say self-empowerment really means? I hear people using empowerment all over the place. I use empowerment, but I know what I mean. What are you talking about self-empowerment?
We we wanted to put together a complete manual for how to improve your life, looking at all of these different aspects, but we wanted to keep it very, very science-based. There are lots of good ideas out there, but there's also a lot of airy-fairy fluff, and I wanted to stay away from all of that. I wanted to keep it very, very grounded. But when I talk about self-empowerment, I mean, we provide you the tools, we provide you the information to go and create your own self-help program, so that you understand why things happen. It's not just someone handing you a recipe, a series of instructions, do this, this, and this. And if it doesn't work for you, you're not doing it correctly. I've heard those kinds of comments, and I didn't want that. So self-empowerment is like, let's take the science, let me explain it to you, let me explain why it matters, let me provide you with techniques, tools and techniques to put everything into practice, but be empowered enough so that anything that I share with you, you can personalize and make it your own. We're all different. We all
Yes.
have different preferences, and yeah, you want to make it your own, because then it can really work.
Yes, yes, because one size does not fit all, right? And there's so many myths out there, so misconceptions and perceptions, and it's like, oh, that doesn't work for me. So you move on, but it could work for you if it was really tailored to you. So I love that you really do empower them, and it's similar to my golf instructor. The thing that's so brilliant about him is he can actually explain to me why I need to do certain things and what I'm doing wrong and what I need to correct. So when I'm out there by myself and he's not by my side, I can self-correct. I can move in the moment and know why I'm doing what I'm doing, or why my results are happening the way they are, because I'm not turning all the way, or whatever the case may be. This is the same thing for life too. Being empowered really means having the ability to be self-sufficient, so to speak. So can you share some of these myths and explain why they do more harm than good?
Sometimes they do, myths. There's let me give you an example,
Yeah.
Lorianne. There's
Yeah.
a story that is very commonly shared in the self-help field, and it has to do with Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister, he broke the 4 minute mile. And the way the story is shared, it says that, before Roger Bannister, that this would be in 1954, before he broke the 4 minute mile, people didn't think that it was possible, but he did, and he went out and did it. And because he did it, other people saw it was possible. So they now believed. So they now, it's been broken many, many times. Like when I was looking at it, like 1,500 times. And that's only the ones that are recorded. Forget about people who are running away because they're scared of something. Lots of other factors can come into play. But so that's how the story is shared. Believe, just go and believe. Well, for one part of it, they don't explain to you what belief means or why you don't believe in the first place. But look at the story behind Roger Bannister. I ran a marathon in 2018. Um, but my training actually began in 2013. Prior to that, I had not run in decades.
Wow.
I hadn't done anything at all, but I started slowly. I started with a 5K, a 10K, I worked my way up to it. It was a whole long process. And so it was with Roger Bannister. He actually started his training in 1946. um, he built up, he did all of the training, and then there's all of the other elements that come into play. It takes a lot of discipline to get
Yeah.
up early in the morning to go out and train, especially when all your friends have been out at a party the night before and everyone else is sleeping in, and you've got to get up. It takes effort to think about your diet, think about all the aspects that go into, when you're training. It's not only going out and running, it's all the other disciplines that
Sure.
have to happen in your life. So to say that it just took belief, and the the way the story goes on, Roger Bannister broke the 4 minute mile, and then John Landry broke it 6 weeks later. And the way the story is shared, it's like, well, Bannister did it, so now Landry knew he could do it, so he did. No, he had been training for years as well.
Sure.
It was
Yeah.
just it was just luck on Bannister's side that his race came first, and circumstances were such, the weather, his diet, his health on that particular day. We have good days and bad days.
Sure.
It's just luck that it all came into play, but it's luck born of all the other disciplines.
Well, sure. And that's why, it's a lifestyle.
John
So
Landry could easily have been the first one.
sure.
And so when we talk about the myth being dangerous, it's the idea of all I have to do is believe. Oh no, I failed, so therefore I didn't believe enough. So I'm failing at believing as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah.
That's
That's
possible.
crazy. That's absolutely crazy. It takes a lot of training. That it goes to the overnight success, which took 20 years,
Yes.
those kind of concepts. And the truth is you have to make an effort, and they're baby steps, and it's one step at a time. And as coaches, we remind people of that. They're expecting change, magical change. It's like the year-end prophecies we make every January. And I was like, one, you're making too many. And two, if you're going to do it, you need to replace it something else with it. You can't add on because you already have a full schedule. So if you're going to do that, you really need to be mindful of what you're doing. And some people have a whole list of it. It's just not one resolution. They have a whole list of things. I'm going to do this and this and this and they make it impossible for themselves to be successful. So it does take time. It does take ramping up. It does take effort. It doesn't have to be bad effort. I mean, the thought of running for me, it's been years. I run from my front door to my mailbox. That's about as far as I go. But that's just me. I'm adverse to throwing up and I don't like the feeling of it. So to me, running is not something you're going to find me do, but other people get a lot of excitement out of that. I find my exercise in a different way. I do other things that fill me up. There's something called a placebo response. Let's talk about that because I know they use placebos in controlled research and environments and things like that. I have my personal feelings about placebos, but what's your feeling about the use of placebo? And do you have a problem with it?
No, I don't have a problem with placebo. Yes, placebo is always controlled for in scientific drug studies. They're
Mhm.
always gonna make sure, but they kind of dismiss the idea of the placebo. Oh, if it's placebo, then it's not real. And me, no, I think placebo's fabulous. I think it is amazing, incredible. If ever you want an example of your own innate ability to heal yourself or hurt yourself. You look at the placebo, nocebo responses. There is the big evidence. And so that's the stuff that I want to explore even more. And then, there's the research that has been done specifically on placebo. So they say that a capsule is going to be more effective than a tablet, an injection is more effective than a capsule, the surgery is even more effective. But when it comes to mind training, one of the elements that really fascinates me is to do with the global placebo effect. So, for example, the placebo effect for hypertensive drugs in Germany is particularly low. But when it comes to gastric ulcers, the placebo effect in Brazil is low. It's higher in Europe and it's highest in Germany. So,
Well,
what kinds of beliefs are behind all of this? I mean, placebo is it's ignited by the power of belief. So, what
yeah.
kind of beliefs are there? What kind of information are we taking in from around us? Something that is going to affect an entire nation so that they have a higher or a lower chance of experiencing a placebo in a particular format. That ties in so many different aspects. So the power of the mind, I think, is best exemplified in the placebo response. I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. I think a great deal more research should be done on the placebo response.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're calling it placebo, but I'll give you an example of something that happened in my life. So I sew. My mom taught me how to sew, and when I moved into my house years ago, I decided I wanted to make my own curtains. And so I went out and I got a pattern, and this was before text messaging and FaceTime and all that good stuff. And mom was in South Carolina, I was up in New York, and I found a pattern that I liked. So I came home and I started to make it. When I got caught up, I would call mom and say, "This is what it's telling me to do. What does it mean? How to blah, blah." And I went through it, and then I finished the thing, and I hung it up, took a picture, mailed it down, snail mail. If anybody remembers that, those days, I sent it down to her and she goes, they came out beautiful. I was so proud of it. And I was just like, yeah, I did that. I made it. I picked out the fabric. Everything was perfect. My mom said, but I have to ask you a question. And I said, go ahead. She said, so why did you pick the hardest pattern? And I was like, what do you mean? She said, Vogue is the most difficult sewing pattern that's out there. She said, why didn't you pick an easy pattern? And I said, I didn't like any of those designs. And she goes, interesting, but yet you were able to do it because I wasn't an expert sewer in my mind, right? Nor do I feel that I am, but I was able to do this. And and she said, that's very interesting, which made me think about it because I was like, well, I didn't know at the time that it was the hardest. So I didn't have that in my brain that, oh, this is difficult. It just was. And I didn't have a lot of experience sewing. So I called my expert mom, who was an expert sewer, and she just walked me through the language that I wasn't familiar with. So that just told me so much, not only about myself, but about humans. Is I didn't lower the bar on myself by saying I'll do the easy pattern. I didn't raise the bar on myself by saying, oh, I'm going to do the difficult pattern and be challenged. I just didn't know. So I just did it. And I think it kind of goes back to the running. He didn't know that he was going to break this. He didn't know. He just did it, and he challenged himself and he beat himself. And by beating himself, he actually broke records. Right? Does that resonate?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is a great example. When you tell yourself you can't do something, you are not going to give it your best effort.
Yeah.
That
Well, you
that
give
that
yourself excuses. You give yourself outs.
Yeah, and you're gonna quit earlier. At the first sign of any difficulty, you're gonna quit. But if you don't know that you can't do something, then you keep going and you do try your hardest. And yeah, frequently you'll be successful a whole lot more frequently than you'd expect.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you wrote two books. I'm assuming we can get them on Amazon, yes?
The books that you mentioned, the motivational nudges and the subliminal, they're older books. My current book is Mind Training, the Science of Self-Empowerment. And yes, both motivational nudges and mind training are available on Amazon. But mind training is the stuff that really forms the basis of everything that I teach and the philosophy.
Yeah, I'll have the links with this episode so that you guys could go just right out to Amazon and pick those up, and definitely go to the website because it's an easy website, is lavindataylor.com. So again, all that information will be with the episode. So definitely follow Lavinda because this is Ravinda, sorry. This is just such yumminess for me. I'm so excited. How did you get into mind training? Like, where did that come from? You didn't wake up as a baby and go, I'm going to do mind training.
It's a process. My background is actually in microbiology. I was working in a path lab when there was a visiting lecturer. It was hosted by the hospital that I worked at. So it was a special presentation for the doctors, the nurses, the lab staff. But it was a hypnotherapist. And
Oh,
that and it fascinated me. Up until that point, I had dismissed hypnosis. I thought that was just, something people did on stage for entertainment. It wasn't to be taken seriously. But
right.
there was one particular story he shared of a woman who had a pain in her arm. She'd had a pain in her arm for a decade more. She'd seen all the doctors, all the experts, all the specialists. They couldn't do anything. She went to see him, and under hypnosis, they did a regression, and she remembered a traumatic event, something that she had dismissed. It was something that had upset her in the past that she had totally dismissed. But when it came to the surface, she called the hypnotherapist back the day afterwards and said the pain had gone. The pain had actually gone immediately, but she hadn't believed it, so she had waited until the following day to tell him. But it just fascinated me that something we're upset about in the past could have such ramifications on today and the influence. So that's pretty much where my journey started. From that, I underwent hypnotherapy myself. I then went and did a 3-year training in hypnosis and the psychotherapy. And then I met my husband, and I've been immersed in this field ever since. But it's all about, to me, it's always about the practical applications. I do find it fascinating how the mind works, why we do what we do. That stuff is just interesting on a theoretical level. But the real value comes to how can we use this information to become the best version of ourselves? That was part of your own introduction. It's all
Yes.
about becoming, it's not about competing with other people. It's not about becoming Superman, Superwoman. It's about unfolding ourselves, expressing
Yeah.
ourselves, actualizing ourselves, becoming the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, stepping into the fullness of our potential. That's what we want to do. We just want to lean into it and just be the best version of ourselves. And we're perfect the way we come in. We come in with all our success codes already in us. When people, I lost myself years ago. Yeah, I kept giving little pieces of myself away and doing and being and doing what other people wanted me to be and do. And then one day I was like, yeah, no, I'm done with that. I want to find that 18-year-old fierce. I just was so empowered and nothing bothered me. I would try anything. I would do whatever. I'm like, okay, let's try this. And I'm still like that to this day, but I needed to find her again. And now I'm back to being who I am, and love me, don't love me, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. I am who I am and I like it. It feels better. It wears better. Doesn't that wear better on you?
Absolutely. I totally relate. When we're young, we often don't realize what we can't do. And so we do things. The beauty about getting older is we get that back and we start saying, I'm going to do my thing.
That's right. That's right. We're going to take a short break here. You're listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. We'll take a short break. We'll come back and continue this yummy conversation. Be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 take action success coach and strategist. If you'd like to be a guest, lift up your business, product, or non-for-profit, or if you have a question or comment, we love them. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. I don't want to take any more time. I want to jump right back in here with Ravinder Taylor. Unbelievable conversation. I love mindset. I love mind training. All that is really intriguing to me. I'm curious because they call me Polly Perky and all that because I'm very optimistic, and I was like, I can find the joy in anything, and I think it's really important. And I know you talk about the power of optimism. Can you tell us why optimism is so powerful? And are you saying we should just repeat positive affirmations to ourselves even though we may not believe them, or are there other things that we should be doing? I'm just naturally like, this is great. So what are your thoughts? What say you?
This has to be one of my favorite areas in the whole training process. There has been so much research done in the areas of positivity and optimism and the kind of effects it can have on your life. The optimistic person will generally, as I said, that the research is extensive. It's just everywhere you look, but they will live longer, live happier, have better relationships, be more financially successful, live longer. These things just happen. There was a longitudinal study they did on nurses, and what they found was that the most optimistic women would have drastically reduced likelihood of dying from things like cancer. So they had a 16% less risk of dying from cancer and a 52% lower risk of dying from infection, just from being optimistic.
Yeah.
Having a positive outlook, being outgoing and stuff. There was this other research that was done on nuns, and what they found was when they looked at the journals, they actually assessed the journals to see how positive these nuns were and how outgoing they were. And after the nuns passed away, in the autopsies, they could find brains full of Alzheimer's plaques,
Wow.
full of it, but it never expressed itself. For
Wow.
the positive, outgoing people, it never expressed itself. And I found that absolutely fascinating. There are tools and techniques to increase your optimism quotient. Some people are naturally pessimistic. Not all pessimism is actually pessimism, because sometimes the pessimist can be preparing for the worst outcome. So therefore, they have that little bit of optimism that if they prepare enough, then the bad thing isn't going to happen.
I find that very interesting because I was taught prepare for the worst. So I will prepare for the worst, but I'm still very joyous about it. I still like hanging in the happy, high vibrating emotions, as opposed to being in the cranky emotions. Sometimes I choose to be in the cranky emotions, but it's a choice. Today I'm feeling cranky. I'm going to stay here, but I'm not. But I do prepare for worst case scenario, and yet still be incredibly optimistic. It's like, okay, if I'm prepared, I feel like if something happens, I know what I'm going to do. But chances are it's not going to happen because I prepared for it. So is that kind of convoluted thought?
No, no, that is totally correct. Because in all of this research, as I said, it's very, very extensive. But in all of this research, they did also highlight the importance of being realistic. So those people who were overly optimistic about how much money they would make by a certain age, they ended up being disappointed. So having a healthy dose of realism in there keeps everything straight. So even though you're preparing for the worst, you're still optimistic that you're not gonna need that, which is different from the real pessimist, because the real pessimist can just churn over those negative thoughts over and over. They're constantly expecting the worst possible outcome. But there are techniques. There are things like journaling. One thing that you can do is, if you keep a journal, then go back and look at the journal and see what negative thoughts that you had, and then assess whether they really came true. What was it worth spending that time and energy being negative about it? Or also just being more mindful about your thoughts. So if you catch yourself saying negative things to yourself, then try and turn it around. So if you're anticipating something bad is going to happen, well, just for the heck of it, play around with the idea that maybe the best outcome could happen.
Right,
Try and
right,
imagine that. Try and paint that picture in your
right,
mind. You're going to feel better anyway.
right,
And we don't know what's going to happen.
right.
Frequently, the worst possible thing rarely ever happens. And so it becomes a waste of time. So journaling is a great way to do that.
Yeah,
Gratitude.
yeah,
I one of the things I like to do last thing at night when I'm in bed is to take just a few seconds. These things don't take a great deal of time. Once you make them just a habit, they become really simple. But just take a few seconds to think of what I was grateful for that day.
yeah,
Today, I'm grateful for blue skies and sunshine. I love the sun. I don't like it when it's all cloudy all the time, but
yeah.
on a cloudy day, I'll find something else I could be grateful for, because I like the fresh air. So I just turn my attention to those things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for my pets. I'm grateful for my work.
I love that. I love that you just turn your attention, and that's what you can do. Turn your attention and find and be grateful what you have. Don't we focus way too much on what we don't have. We should focus on what we do have, and then the other halves come in. And having that sense of gratitude and actually expressing that gratitude is so good. One, it makes you feel good. If you do more than five by the fifth one, actually by the sixth one, you're going to feel a shift. If you were in a cranky mood before, you can't be cranky and grateful at the same time. Try it. I dare you. It doesn't work. You just can't do it. So it's really nice to look at what you do have and be grateful for that and have that gratitude. At the end of the day, too, to add to what you were saying, I add what I'm grateful for that I did really well that day. If maybe I encouraged a client to really just grow out of the box that they had put themselves in, that I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to help someone do that. So those things are important, and to pat yourself on the back. We don't celebrate ourselves enough. and all the wonderful things we do on a daily basis. And sometimes just getting out of bed is something to be grateful for and is something to pat yourself on the back, because otherwise you would have pulled the covers over your head and stayed there. So it's the little things that really, really matter. The big things are wonderful, don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes we anticipate always doing these big, huge things when all the little things matter, because without them, to your point earlier in the first segment, is it takes baby steps to get up to the point where you can run that marathon. It takes, you're not running out of the door and doing a 9K marathon or a 15K marathon. That's not happening. So, running to the mailbox is still an achievement. I might feel like I'm dying, but I ran to the mailbox. And so there's the achievement in finding the joy in it and staying in those high vibrational emotions. You say that everyone has some self-destructive behaviors, and why do people have these, and how can we uncover them? Because becoming aware, then we can have other choices, right? And more importantly, how can we eliminate these bad, 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 bad self-destructive behaviors?
Well, this also wraps back to the second part of your earlier question about affirmations as well. Um, the subconscious mind is a repository of all of our experiences, everything that has gone on. We have a bias towards negativity. So if you go up in front of your employer and they give you an employment review and they tell you 10 wonderful things and they tell you one bad thing, you're going to remember the bad thing. You are going to fixate on that. And there's lots of biological reasons for that. We are herd animals. We need to fit in. We get our security from all of that. You don't want to be ostracized. Um, so we tend to hold on to the negative things a whole lot more. And that stuff sits in our subconscious mind. The subconscious mind wants to protect us going forward. It doesn't want us to experience the same pain again. So it will utilize strategies based on old training. So perhaps, for me, I have an example where I was embarrassed doing a public speaking thing when I was in school. I would have been 8, 9 years old. And people laughed. It wasn't a big deal looking back at it, but at the
At
time,
the time,
it has an impact. And
sure.
then as an adult, for the longest time, I was phobic about public speaking. I wouldn't do interviews. You must be joking me. It just wasn't gonna happen. But it's this learning that we have in the subconscious mind that says, no, we need protection from that in the future, even though it's relying on old information. So think about weight loss. You know, lots of people, most people are trying to lose a few pounds at least.
Right.
But then when they're upset, they think I deserve a treat or I need some, and you think back to as a child when you were hurt, you fall over, your mom kisses it better and gives you some ice cream or some candy or something. So you have these pairings that come into play, and that can be really hard to let go of, even when as an adult you want to you want to diet, you want to lose some weight, but you have this need to treat yourself when you've done well, or to be gentle with yourself and give yourself a treat because you've been hurt. It
Yeah,
goes
you
both ways.
self-sabotage your weight loss by doing that. But it's a reflex. It's like a known thing. It almost becomes innate, right? I have a story for you that falls right along the same lines. It wasn't about speaking, it was about writing. And my English teacher, seventh grade English teacher, I won't use her name, but I'll never forget. She told me, "Oh my God, Lorianne, you're a terrible writer." My English teacher, very encouraging, right? From that point on, I really had like rigor mortis about writing. I had all these ideas, but the thought of writing, I would just stay as far away from it as possible until this book. A friend of mine, Kate Butler, said to me, if what you say impacts anybody in a positive way, would you still do it? And I said, yeah. She goes, then let's do it. backtrack a little bit to law school. When I went to law school, my legal writing professor would go, Lorianne, why does your face melt off every time I give you a writing assignment? And I told her the story, and she goes, listen, yeah, you have syntax errors and stuff like that. She goes, that's what editors are for. That's what clerks are, law clerks are for. They'll take care of all that. I want your ideas, just put them down. So between what she said and what Kate said, I put those two things together and came out of the box writing this, and now I have another book that I'm writing, which again, I jumped that hurdle, but I'll never forget. I had a boss who he he read pens, one of the press releases I wrote. There was more red. It looked like the page was bleeding on there because he had a certain style and he had nothing really to do with my writing. It had to do with his style and the voice he wanted out there. But I went flashback to my English teacher, and then I was like, stop. This is fine. He needs it a certain way. So you really have to retrain yourself. Would that be an accurate statement?
That that definitely plays a role. There are lots of things that we are told by a significant person, maybe in the past, maybe not in the distant past, but it zings in. It goes all the way in, and it takes hold within you, and it can destroy your confidence. But there are many, many things that we've forgotten about. So I tend to say, you look at anything that you're trying to achieve. If you find yourself repeatedly getting close to it and then failing, look for self-sabotage. For anything, self-sabotage underlies everything,
Yes.
if you can eliminate that, you will do X amount better in every avenue of your life. The key is to maybe root out some of those self-sabotaging strategies. And in mind training, one of the areas that I like that I have learned through my research, and I practice everything on myself as well, that
Sure.
the more you trust that the subconscious mind has the answers, the more you question your own subconscious mind, the more likely are the answers will come up. Now, first of all, when you start it, you'll come up with crazy stuff. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but the more you do it, the more it will surface. And if there is a particular area that you're trying to fix, and so you're questioning yourself as to why you've got this particular bad habit, when you find the right answer, the problem can disappear that quick.
Yeah, amazing. It's amazing. It goes back to awareness. When you're aware of it, it disappears. It can disappear. I find it interesting that our brains have no time mechanism. So something can happen to us 20 years ago or 5 minutes ago, and our brain is like, because it recognizes the pattern and it just looks at it as, yep, it just happened, even if it was 20 years ago. And it was more than 20 years ago that that writing thing happens. But boy, oh boy, it's clear as day to this day. Again, focusing on the negative. She could have told me a million positive things, but I remembered that.
Exactly, exactly. And you probably wrote lots of papers in that period of time where you got great marks.
Straight A student.
But
Straight A student.
there
Yeah.
you go.
Top 10% of my class. And I was like, about writing. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So we just need to be mindful that we can do things to really train our minds. Why does the question of free will matter?
Free will to me becomes more of the spiritual approach. Lots of the brightest minds in the world will tell you 100% free will doesn't exist. And there's loads of scientific evidence. Benjamin Libet in the 80s started the work where he found activity in the subconscious mind before you make a choice. Technicians looking at the activity in the brain have the ability to predict your choice. Now, these were simple choices, things like choose to press a button with your right hand or your left hand. But technicians looking at the information could predict up to 7 seconds earlier what it is that you're going to choose. Now, this tells you again that your choices are all coming from your subconscious mind, and all of these arguments against free will all talk about there being some precursor. Maybe it's your genes, maybe it's your life experience. But for me, the spiritual part of free will comes into, okay, if the decisions are made in your subconscious mind, then start taking actions today to change how your subconscious mind is programmed.
Yeah.
You can do that, by learning about compliance principles. Advertisers, marketers are going to use these kinds of principles to get you to buy their products. Things can be almost knee jerk. So one research that I came across, they found that if your waitress is wearing red, she will earn more tips from both male and female um, people in the
Why? Why is that?
it's one of those, lots of these things they may not know exactly why. They just
Yeah,
know that it happens, and people are doing this research, and so they're going to use this information against you. Advertisers are going to use it, the media is going to use
sure.
it,
We look for patterns.
politicians are definitely going to use all of this stuff. But
Yeah,
when you're aware that this stuff goes on, you can start thinking differently. So when you see an advertisement on TV, you don't just immerse yourself in the ad. You say, how are they trying to tweak me here? It's
yeah,
classic, the reciprocity, social proofs. If everyone's got it, you have to have it. We see these ads over and over and over again. But once you're aware that they're being done deliberately, you can take that little step back,
yeah,
put in the system two thinking that Kahneman talks about, the careful thought as opposed to the instinctive, and you can make changes. So when you change, you can change how you program your subconscious mind from here on in going forwards. You can look into your subconscious mind to find some of these underlying self-sabotaging behaviors. But the beautiful part of it for me, Lorianne, it's my thing, is to do with we are part of somebody else's experience. You talked earlier about when you help somebody else and how grateful that makes you feel because you just have that internal happiness. Well, there are lots of people out there who don't believe self-help is possible, that they just don't, and you're not going to reach them with logic and reason. They have to
right.
come to it in their own time. But the way that you can reach them is by incorporating these ideas, improving your own life, and then they see that your life has improved.
Yes, model it.
You become part of their life experience, and so
Yes.
therefore you make it possible for them to make a different choice. And that's why I love the question of free will.
Yes, I love that. That's so good. Yeah, modeling is the best way to do it because then they want what you got. So it goes back to Sally met Harry. They want what she has. So I love this. This is a conversation. We need to do this again, Ravinda. This is unbelievable. I really want to dive in more about how Mind Train works and sharing some experiences and things like that. But we ran out of time because you're just so amazing and have so much information to share. So I look forward to having you back. I hope you will come back. And thank you so much for your time today and all your information. You can again find Ravinda at, give me your website again, ravindertaylor.com. Yes.
RavinderTaylor.com, that's correct.
That's beautiful, and it'll all be in there. Instagram, all her links will be with the episode. Follow her, get the information, go to Amazon, get the book, start looking at the mind training, and you could start doing this today and changing your life for the better. Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening to Healthy Lifestyle today. I hope we earned the privilege of your time. Look for our show next Saturday at 3 p.m. on JBC Broadcasting on iHeartRadio. And we can also be found on all major platforms. And we would be so grateful if you please like, follow, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I am Coach Lorianne. Let your dreams be bigger than your fears and let your life be filled with joy. Until next time, take care. Thank you so much.